I'm making a separate video of joining also. I'll show this to HOD sir. Let him see and analyze what is happening with you guys. Because whenever they ask for recommendation for any internship and all, if this is how we are attending the classes, everything will get impacted. Because the knowledge that you gain in the class is what is going to help you when you attend interviews. Okay, don't think everything is simple, everything is easy, you can fool us, you can take advantage of this situation, you can sit wherever you want, you can come whenever you want, you can go whenever you want and do as you please. If that is what you are thinking, and that you will get whatever that you are mistake, you will get the result based on the mistake that you are committing over here. That is for sure. So if you people are not coming to the class, attending them, then you're certainly going to get affected. Those who come daily, those who attend daily are the only people who are staying here, which I can absolutely make out who and all are those people. Others are just careless about their own lives. I don't know what to do with such people. Tell them, inform them. If you guys are regularly attending, please kindly inform your friends that to forget about whatever the job that they are looking for, whatever the internships that they are looking for. Certainly there will be no recommendation, there will be no good feedback from our side. If they ask us, definitely, because we should be genuine to the people who are offering us something good, right? We will tell what our students are worth of. Definitely. How can we support you when we know what is the effort that you are putting into it? We cannot fool company people, right? Obviously they will get to know your performance whenever you are working for them. And don't tell me that you are going to be genuine over there, you are going to be honest and you will work hard there. Then why is that it is difficult for you people to work hard over here? Don't even think about answering like that. Then you are fooling yourself, you are fooling your parents. Please remember that. Inform your friends, those who are not attending the classes regularly, kindly inform them that there will be no support from our side for those people. Because those who are hardworking, those who are capable, those who are really true to their work, only those people will be honored by anybody. For those people, they don't even require our recommendation. It will show up on their work, it will show up on their dedication to work, dedication to know. Right? 5-6 minutes are over, still 43 people are here. So including me it is 43, so it is rounded up to 42. So you people please inform your friends. Okay, so today we are going to start off with a new concept, which is the error control coding. So far we have been discussing about the initial stages of the digital communication system, where we had considered the source in the discrete mode, that is discrete source. We then classified the source into two types. One is the memoryless source, the other one is a Markov source. So memoryless source, where the generation of each symbol are independent of each other. Markov source is where the symbol generations depend on the previously generated symbols. So the generation of the symbols or the messages will be dependent on what type of source that we are considering. So it is dependent source or the Markov source. So once we have discussed about this source, we then went on to discuss what is meant by source encoding procedure. So what is the source encoding? The source encoding is a procedure of addressing or expressing the message in terms of zeros and ones. Okay? So what we were trying to do over here, for the discrete symbols that are generated out of a discrete source, we are trying to associate those symbols with zeros and ones or any type of codes. If it is r is equal to 2, then we call it as a binary code. If r is equal to 3, we call it as a ternary code, which is involving the elements as 0, 1, 2. If it is a quaternary code, when r is equal to 4, we are going to obtain a code word involving 0, 1, 2, 3. So like this, for different radix value, we can generate or associate the code word for the symbols that are put out by the source, discrete source. So once we have converted all the symbols into their one of the codes, which is either binary, ternary or quaternary, there are certain criteria that we need to follow. What is that criteria? The average length of the entire message should be minimal, should be less. And what does that mean? If the coding takes place based on the probability of its occurrence, that means we are trying to reduce the length of the code word that is used in expressing a particular symbol. So why is that? Why do we have to have a minimal length or minimal bit sequence to represent a particular symbol? Is in order to reduce the amount of bandwidth consumed while those symbols are being propagated along a given channel. So that is the reason behind why we are trying to attain the lesser average length. So which means we are trying to increase the code efficiency. What is that code efficiency? Which is denoted in terms of eta, where we express the average length, that is entropy over average length, or length over entropy is what I guess is the code efficiency. So we are going to measure this. This is going to help us in figuring out how well a particular algorithm, the source encoding algorithm, is capable of shrinking the information based on the probability of occurrence of a particular symbol, thereby reducing the average length, thereby reducing the amount of bandwidth occupied during the transmission. After this, what we discussed was, we had discussed about channel. What are the different types of channel that we normally come across in a communication system? So where we discussed about different types of channel. Of course, there are 3 more channels that are left over, where I have to still discuss about that. I am going to give you the video. Please go through that. In the channel, the basic criteria or the basic information that I need to know while studying the channel is, we have to characterize the capacity of the channel. What is meant by capacity? It is the maximum data rate that can be supported by the given channel. This is what we call it as capacity. Why this is important? Why this parameter capacity is important? Is because that Shannon stated that if at all the rate of transmission of information, if the rate of transmission of information is lesser than the code, if it is lesser than the capacity of the channel, only then there will be a reliable transmission of the information. What do you mean by reliable transmission? That means I can expect the information to be reached out to the receiver with minimal probability of error, minimum error. If at all the transmission rate is greater than the capacity of the channel, then there is no reliable communication. What do you mean by no reliable? That means the information that you are transmitting, there is no way in which I can overcome the error during the transmission that is getting affected to the information over here. So this is what we know. So for different types of channels, we have evaluated what is the capacity, and we have tried to also evaluate the entropies or the uncertainties that are involved in the channel. So those parameters are the characteristics that are defined for a given channel is what we know as the priori entropy, that is h of x, which is the entropy of the input symbols. Then we have equivocation. h of y given x. Then we have h of x given y, another form of entropy, x given y, and we have the joint entropy h of x comma y. Then we have the parameter called as I of, that is mutual information, I of x comma y, and we have another property which is the capacity of the channel. So these are the different entropies that are defined for different types of channels. We have come across noiseless, symmetric channel. First one that we discussed was symmetric channel. The second one that we discussed was binary symmetric channel, binary erasure channel. Next we are yet to, I'm going to give you the video for this, that is deterministic channel, then noiseless channel, then cascaded channels. So these are the different types of channels for which we will be defining all these entropies. Now, once we have done with analyzing the channel, that means there are certain things that we have known the characteristics of the channel now. Now, we have to construct the coding method such that when r is r of t, let us assume that the rate of transmission of the information is lesser than the capacity of the channel. Then what does the Shannon's second theorem states? That whenever the rate of transmission of information is lesser than the capacity of the channel, then I can recover the information, I can recover the error that has occurred during the transmission. That means I'll be able to send the information with minimum probability of error. That means if there is no guarantee that the error would not occur, the error will occur because of the channel impairments. So in order to overcome the channel impairments, what we can do, we have to have some detecting mechanism and then the correcting mechanism. So the detection and correction mechanism is taken care before I could send the information. Once I know what type of channel I am using, I can do all this analysis. So I will take care of that probability of error that could happen during the transmission even before the information being sent. So how do we take care of that? Is by adding an extra block over here, which is known as the channel encoding procedure. So here I am talking about the transmission section. So in the transmission section, basically we are going to make use of channel encoding, and on the other side, on the contrary, on the receiver section, we are going to make use of what is known as the reverse operation of channel encoding, which is channel decoding. So both put together, these are called as channel coding methods, or they are also called as error control coding. These are also called as error control coding methods. So what the name itself will state that these are going to reduce the errors, or these are going to help us in detecting the errors in the channel. Yes.
Ma'am, your voice is not proper, ma'am. Sometimes it becomes low and high.
Now?
Now it's proper, ma'am.
Now is it okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
But sometimes it becomes very less, ma'am.
Okay. Now I'll try. Okay. Fine. So the channel encoding procedure are also known as error control coding. That means if at all if there is any bit error that is occurring within the channel, then I can overcome, I can detect, and sometimes I will be even able to correct them by making use of this error control coding method. Why do we have to do this is because in order to take care of the error that has occurred during the transmission, not always I can request the source to retransmit. There are certain errors that the receiver itself can deal with. In such cases, then why not make use of such algorithms in order to rectify the error during the transmission rather than asking the transmitter to resend it? Because whenever we are dealing with any communication system, the two resources that for any given communication system is, resources of a communication system, we call it as signal power and the channel bandwidth. These are the two main resources. So we have to utilize them very carefully whenever we are dealing with the communication system. So signal power is how much of the amount of energy that we are going to give to a particular bit while it is being transmitted across a channel. That is EB by L0 of a bit is going to be the one of the resource, how much energy I can give to a particular bit, because there is always a restriction of the power with which I can transmit the information. If at all in some scenario I can not simply go on increasing the energy per bit, because of the reason that if the energy per bit increases, then in a certain cases it can interfere with other signal in the system and it can disturb the other communication modes also. So for that sake, there is always a threshold up to which I can go on increasing this EB, and there is no way I can control N0 because it is a additive white Gaussian noise, and the channel bandwidth is a very what we can say, it's a very limited resources, because it depends on the material of the channel which I am trying to make use of to transmit the information. If you consider the copper coaxial cables, if you consider transmission lines, if you consider any wired communication, if you compare with copper cables and then the optical fibers, then both will have a different bandwidth, okay, that they can they can be used for transmission. So the channel bandwidth varies based on the type of channel that I am trying to choose. If you go with the wireless channel, then it will have a different kind of bandwidth. So all these are dependent on the type of medium that I am going to choose. So therefore these two being the two major resources, whenever I am designing all these, I need to have these two as my reference what parameters while designing the entire communication system. So what we need to do, in order to conserve the bandwidth or request the source to retransmit, or there are different coding methods, there are different errors that can occur. So first we will just look at what are the basic errors that can occur during the transmission over the channel. Then we will see what are the different coding methods that are available in the channel coding procedure. Okay, so we will see the two different types of errors here. The types of errors. I'm going to discuss about types of errors here. So the type of errors that we normally come across is, one is what we call it as single bit error. Okay, random error or a bit error. We can also call it as bit error. Then there is another type of error called as burst error. What do you mean by this random error and then the burst error is, we are going to have random error means during the transmission of a bit stream, one of the bit will end up in an error and it can go to 0. Okay, it might be pushed to a 0. Then we have burst error. This could be caused due to a Gaussian, thermal noise in the system that is present. There could be a Gaussian noise or an impulse noise which can cause this 1 to be forced to a 0 or 0 to be forced to a 1. So if one bit is getting altered, such an error is called as a random error or a bit error. Then there is another error that can occur during the bit stream transmission, that is known as burst error. So what is that burst error means? If there is a continuous stream of bits, then there will be burst of noise. That means the noise will not only affect one bit duration, rather it is going to sustain for a various length of bits. That means it can affect the subsequent bits also within the transmission. That means these 4 bits put together might get affected by the noise in the channel. So such a noise which is going to affect the group of bits during the transmission is what we call it as burst error. The random error will only change a particular bit, while the burst error will only change the larger set of bits during the bit stream transmission. So these are the two different types of errors that can normally occur during the bit transmission. So what we do in order to overcome these methods we can control these errors by different methods, what is known as, so error control methods can be defined as, there are two types of error control methods. One is forward error correction methods. In short, these are also called as FEC. Then there is another method which we can make use of, that is ARQ, automatic repeat request. I have already talked about this in brief when we spoke about binary erasure channel, automatic repeat request. Okay, only disadvantage is that in automatic repeat request it consumes a lot of bandwidth and it requires a extra channel or a reverse channel. So automatic repeat request is mostly used in certain low power applications, like in case of Zigbee, Bluetooth, body area network. Basically, in such data transmission networks, what they do, whenever they are transmitting the information from one sensory node, rather you can also call it as a sensor networks. In some sensor networks, body area networks, you can make use of ARQ, where the receiver will not have the competency in order to overcome the error that has occurred during the transmission, because the receiver would not be a well equipped or what I can say, it will not be a complex system, rather it's going to be a very simple one. So what it is going to do, whenever it sees an error that has occurred during the transmission, it will not try to process the data, rather it is going to request the transmitter to resend it. In such cases, whenever they have a body area network, it will not involve much of a power, or it will not even consume a lot of bandwidth in certain scenario, in spite of using an extra channel or extra amount of bandwidth, where the data size is very small. In such cases, automatic repeat request is a better choice to be made, rather than comparing with the forward error correction methods. So ARQ is automatic repeat request, which are mostly used in small networks or the small distance data transmission, where we have the affordability to use a reverse channel or the feedback channel, along with the power to retransmit the information. That is ARQ. So now we will come to feed forward error correction methods, and we can also have what is known as, in this feed forward error correction method, it is also going to help us in error detection also. It is not only correction, which means the correction can only happen after the detection of the error. So it is going to take care of both these, the correction and first detection and then the correction methods. So what is this feed forward or forward error correction means? These are some of the algorithms which is going to be implemented in the channel encoders, which is going to take a block of information and convert it into what are known as channel codes, channel code words, and then these are going to get transmitted, which will involve the addition of the redundant bits to the information bits. So now we will look at there are two types of error control codings for that method. For that error control coding algorithms can be widely classified into two types. One is, we call them as block codes. The other one, we call it as convolution codes. Okay, so please try to understand this, because these are the things that we are going to implement in the lab as well, and we are going to study this block codes and also the convolution codes. Block code will be studied in both unit 4 and unit 5, and convolution will be studied in the unit 5. Okay, so in the block codes, what we will do, as the name itself will suggest, we are going to take k bits of information. Okay, We are going to take k bits of information, and then we convert this k bits of information into an n bit code word. N bits code word, where k is lesser than n. Where k is lesser than n. That means I am going to take a k bits of information, convert that into an n bit code word where k will be a value lesser than n, and this forms a kind of block. What is that block? This block consists of a code word, a n bit code word. There will be 1, 2, so many up to n bits, and this is called as an entire block of n bits, and it will have a part where the first k bits or the last k bits, either way, the first k bits will be a message bits, will be always a message bits. Then the rest n minus k bits will be the redundant bits. Okay, out of the n bits block, the first k bits will be the message bits, because we have said we are going to take k bits of information. Those first k bits will be the message bits, and the next n minus k bits are going to be the redundant bits, and these are the redundant bits which are appended to the information bits in order to, these are used in detecting and correcting error. These are used in detecting and correcting error. Okay, so what we will do, we will take any k bits of information, we are just going to convert them into a n fixed length block which is of the size n, such that the first k bits will be the message bits, and the next n minus k will be the redundant bits, which are calculated from the combination of the same k bits. We will see that later, and these n minus k are going to be called as redundant bits, and these are calculated redundant bits. We are not simply adding. You might ask, ma'am, we are adding the redundant bits, whereas in the source encoding we have removed the redundancy, but here we are purposefully adding the redundant bits, because though we are consuming a lot of bandwidth over here, we are trying to put this because of the reason that we will be able to detect and correct the errors which can occur during the transmission. So this is the block codes, and here whenever we are trying to generate the code words, the code words, the n-bit code words, we do not take the previous previous k bits of information into account. That means this will be treated, the k bits block will be treated individually. So if there is first k bits, it will be coded into n bit word, and the next k bits will be coded into another code word. So like that. These two are not interlaced, or these two are not dependent on each other. The code word for this will be entirely different, code word for this will be entirely different. So therefore, here there will be no memory part coming into picture. Whereas coming into convolution codes, these are the unique type of codes where this is going to make use of the message bits are considered for every message bit. For every message bit, there will be redundant bits that are generated. We will see that later. It could be for every message bit, or it could be for every group of messages also. I have just said it as every message bit. Okay, this could be for every message bits, group of message bits. Okay, and this will have memory. That means the code word that you are generating for the current bit will depend on the code word that was will depend on the previous bit also. That means the code word that you are generating here will not only depend on the current message, it will also depend on the current message bit. It will also depend on the message bit which was generated at t minus 1. If you are considering message bit at time t, then this will also have the impact due to the message bit that was generated at the time t minus 1. So like this, the convolution codes are also defined. These are also very effective in current scenario. More block codes are basically very stereotype codes, or where we have a fixed amount of data which we are transmitting. Then we can make use of block codes where the information is not very dynamic. What do you mean by dynamic? Where the informations are not spontaneously generated, rather whenever you have a like, you can compare it like this. Whenever I am trying to browse over a internet browser, if you are generating a page which is consisting of only text information which is already written by someone else, then the information that you are trying to browse is of a fixed type. That means it has a fixed information within it. Such a page can be designed, or it could be transmitted by making use of block codes, where the informations are considered as a block of information and then they are coded and they are sent across. Whereas when you consider the mobile communication, where the informations are generated dynamically, whenever we are dealing with video conferencing, or whenever we are trying to deal with VoIP, that is voice over IP, where the voice information is sent as a packets of data over the network. In such cases, the data that we are transmitting will be dynamic in nature. The data that is getting generated. There we cannot decide, we cannot sit and make it as a block and then finally bringing it to a n-bit code word and then transmit. So in such cases, they are going to implement the convolution codes, or the improvised version of the convolution codes called as turbo codes. So this will have a very advantageous scenario whenever we are going to deal with the dynamic data. This is for a static data. Assume this is for a static data. Okay. So these are the things that we need to know. So to begin with, out of the two error control coding method, the block codes and the convolution codes, we are going to start off with the block codes here. So the first type of block codes, we call it as linear block codes. So today we will discuss about the linear block codes. I will just give you a brief introduction about linear block codes, then we can close for the day. Okay, we will see why it is called as linear, why it is called as block codes. But you please make a note of this. I'm going to write a communication system which is incorporating this linear block codes, and it is going to make use of this error control coding. So where it is going to start is, we will have an input message which is coming out of the source encoder. Assume that this information is called as B suffix k, and the rate at which this information is received is with a bit rate called RB. Let me write this as RB, bits per second, measured in bits per second. This information message or input message is fed into the channel encoder, a block called as channel encoder. Okay, once I push this data into the channel encoder, this is going to be converted into an n-bit code word. The output will be an n-bit code word, and now the rate of the data that was generated will completely change. It is known as the rate at which the information is sent over the channel. So therefore it is channel bit rate. You can call it as a channel bit rate. That is why R suffix C, and these are denoted with DK. Assume that this is coded output, the channel coded output. Let me call this as D suffix K. This RC is related to this RB such that it is represented as N by K. We will see why this N by K later, RB. Okay. Once we are done with the channel encoding, the next stage and all will remain the same, where we have a modulator where you can either make use of PSK, ASK or FSK, YAM array PSK, YAM array FSK or QAM, whatever the modulation technique that you are going to choose. Then we will have the channel. After the channel we will have the demodulator. After demodulator, what could be the next block over here? Take a guess. We need to recover back this n bit information. From this n bit code word, again we will have an n bit code word over here, and these are called as after demodulation, the recovered n bit code word I will call it as dk cap, d suffix k cap, and it will have the same bit rate called as RC. And next we will have the channel decoder. The output of this channel decoder, I will get back the reconstructed output message, which is represented as BK cap and with the bit rate RB bits per second. So these are the steps that are involved in the digital communication system. Of course, I have left out the source encoding, source decoding, all those things. But the channel encoding part, I have just shown it to you over the block diagram. So I'll just stop it over here. We will continue in tomorrow's class regarding the linear block codes, why it is important, and some basics about how to start off with the linear block codes. So I hope, do you people have any idea regarding what is known as vector algebra, something like Galois field? Have you studied linear algebra anytime before? No?